Hi, pal.
So, teaching a class must be interesting these days. You don't really have to get a lesson plan. You just open up your Twitter account and go from there, I guess.
That's true. And I'm talking about several things with my students these days. Look, Donald Trump is correct when he says that the use of social media is very much a part of the modern presidency, as he put it. What he really has, McGraw, is the TBN, the Trump Broadcasting Network. When you think about 30 million followers on Twitter or more, Instagram, Facebook, he really has his own network, bigger than any of the commercial networks, to communicate directly with his own followers. And give him credit for understanding that universe and for using it effectively. The problem is what he says when he gets on those platforms, and to even a lot of Republicans, the impulsiveness, the recklessness, the lack of dignity and respect for the office has been truly alarming. And doesn't the president understand the dignity of the office? You know, he posts a video of himself, an old video from 2007, wrestling on a floor next to a wrestling ring, and proudly posts this. And people around the world, he's about to go represent the United States at the G20 around the world, and they look at that and say, that's the president of the United States rolling around on a floor, and he's proud of it, and he posts a video of it. I think even a lot of Republicans look at that and say, oh my goodness, doesn't he have anything better to do? And doesn't he understand any better the office he holds?
Well, if he does have this Trump Broadcasting Network, he's not using it effectively to get anything done. He's not out there promoting his health care bill. He's not out there promoting his trade bills or tax reform or anything else. He's putting up stupid videos. So great, he has all this and he's trolling the rest of us, but he's not getting his agenda done.
Well, that's true. And I think in many ways, McGraw, he's stuck in campaign mode, because this worked effectively in the campaign by speaking to his followers, by energizing them. There was no doubt that one of the keys to his success, both in the primaries and the general election, his supporters were far more energized, far more enthusiastic, far more likely to vote than low-energy Jeb Bush or low-energy Hillary Clinton. And but when you, as you point out, that's fine when you're a candidate and you mobilize your base and you win a narrow victory, 46% of the vote. But as president, you have to mobilize a much larger constituency, a much broader coalition, if you're going to pass legislation, given the relatively slim Republican majorities in Congress, particularly in the Senate. And he has failed to do that. He has failed to use this platform, failed to use this network to create a larger wave of support behind these very complex pieces of legislation. And you know, during the campaign, it was a campaign of slogans. He really never advanced complex positions on issues. And once he got into this, he said himself at one point, who knew healthcare was so complicated? The answer was everybody knew healthcare was so complicated except him. But he's stuck in this campaign mode of just polarizing the electorate, throwing out slogans, and oversimplifying these issues. Repeal and replace. That's not a platform. That's a slogan. And he's finding that legislation far, far more complicated than just going around the campaign and getting people screaming at campaign rallies.
I think that the strangest thing where I sit, Stephen Roberts, is when my guy does it, it's okay, and I'll defend it to the hilt. But when your guy does it, it's wrong and it's un-American and he should be impeached.
Well, I think you're right about that. The distrust and polarization in American politics is far greater than anything I've seen, and I've covered politics for over 50 years. Now, partisanship is a good thing as an element of American politics. It's a positive thing. We have a two-party system, not a one-party system. We have a two-party system so that voters have choices, so that politicians can elaborate differences of philosophy. The core difference, of course, between Republicans and Democrats is on the role of government. Democrats tend to believe in a bigger government, Republicans in a smaller government, the risk of oversimplification. That's a good thing. Voters need and deserve choices. But what has happened is that it's a very complex picture, but among other things, you've had the decline of two very important elements in American politics: conservative Southern Democrats and progressive Northern Republicans. These were historically in Congress the deal makers. These were the people who overlapped in the middle of Congress. The center of Congress has been hollowed out. We have very few of the centrist, pragmatist deal makers anymore. And the larger polarization in the country has mirrored that. You have so much more distrust. Every poll shows that both sides don't just disagree with the other party. They think they're the enemy. They think that they're evil. This is a very distinct and damaging and dispiriting change in American politics, and that's why there's so much trouble in putting together a health care bill, because there's so much profound distrust on both sides that they're not even talking to each other.
At the risk of going over and tell me to shut up if you have to go, but what should the media do? Should the media cover these tweets? Because clearly he's trolling the media. He's making the media a story. He needs a bad guy. He's making the media the bad person. What should the media do going forward?
It's a very good question. Look, over the weekend, several of his people, Tom Price, health secretary, and others, complained that the media is paying too much attention to his tweets. Well, that's ridiculous, because he wants attention. That's his game. He becomes more and more incendiary, more and more outrageous in order to attract attention. And I do think we have to cover these, but I do also think that the single most important thing the media has to do is be true to our own values. Yes, we should be aggressive. Yes, we need to combat the Trump media, the Trump broadcasting network, which is immune to scrutiny and questioning. But if we do that, it's risky, McGraw. We have to, as a profession, we have to make sure we're as fair as possible to the president, as accurate as possible in our reporting, as devoted as possible to the principles of ethics. And we can make mistakes. There are a lot of pressures on the news media to outscoop each other, to a lot of financial pressures every news media is subjected to. And when you get situations like the CNN story, which CNN broadcast with or put on its website with only one anonymous source, they broke their own rules, their own ethical precepts, and we cannot do that. We have to, as in the words of one CNN executive, we have to play error-free baseball. And every time we don't believe in our own principles, we give our enemies a lot of ammunition. And look, we say as a profession, our job is to hold politicians to account. That's true. It should be equally the other way. The public world, the political world should hold us to account. And any journalist who doesn't understand that and can't accept that level of scrutiny and that level of responsibility
2 seconds
to go sell insurance.
From ABC News.